Once again, safely ensconced in the land of sanely priced food. This is Red Dice Diaries with my post UK Games Expo video. Now, you'll have to forgive me if this is slightly more rambling and incoherent than usual. I am quite tired, having got back from the Games Expo only a few hours ago, if that. And to be honest, I've only actually played in games. I've not run anything. Heaven knows how the people who've run 5, 6, however many games the people who've run there, they must be absolutely cream crackered. Like I say, I'd doff my hat to them. Top job. So, before I start rambling even more incoherently, I'm just going to give a few of my first impressions regarding the UK Games Expo 2015. It was my first year attending the convention. I went along with my wife Hannah, very much looking forward to it. Got to meet a few of the well-known YouTube personalities I interact with. Sean Connors, Jenny Greed, Matthew, aka Rhaegar Dragonborn, and a lot of other people. There was also some people there who I know from live action role players. Also great to see them, and a number of other people that I met over the weekend who were all very entertaining, very passionate about the hobby, very willing to talk about the hobby and the games that they played in. And if I had to say that I'd taken away one thing from this huge convention that took place in Birmingham over here in the UK over this last weekend, I would say that has been one of the great things to me. It's really nice to actually spend a great deal of time with a large group of people who are very passionate about the hobby. And now the convention doesn't actually just cover role-play games. In fact, most of the role-play games I played in were sort of in a small suite of like very small rooms upstairs. The vast majority of the convention was board games, card games, etc. However, as Sean Connors said when I was talking to him about it, they are all very much, the fates of these aspects of the hobby are very much intertwined. It's very easy for someone to make that step from playing an entertaining board game that has role-play elements or a card game that has role-play elements into fully jumping into the role-playing hobby. So I think it's very valuable, certainly in terms of the future of role-playing, to have conventions like this where people can come along, maybe people who've not actually done much role-playing before. They can try out different games. They don't have to spend a vast outlay of capital, although the convention itself isn't exactly cheap. I'll get onto that more later. But the actual games themselves don't cost that much to get involved in. There were people running ad hoc games in the various tables and halls that were made available. So you really could jump into stuff, give it a try. And there were a lot of people that I spoke to, and I know other people have told me that they'd spoke to, who said they'd found new games that they were definitely interested in pursuing in the future. And that's a great thing, because as a hobby, if we only really sort of, we lock down 1 or 2 games and we go, well, that's it, as far as I'm concerned, that's all the game I need, then the hobby really is going to sort of stagnate, and it's never really going to develop. I mean, after all, and don't shoot me for saying this, but if after the first edition of Dungeons and Dragons was created, everyone in the hobby had sat down and gone, well, that's it, we've dealt with that matter, then we wouldn't have the the vast plethora of games and various different types of role-playing games and all the different offshoots, the sort of improvisational games, the independent games, whatever you want to call them, but that all sort of sprang from that same fertile ground. And there wouldn't be as much selection for everyone, whereas now we're lucky enough to live in an age where, thanks to things like drive-through RPG, print on demand, stuff like that, the availability of ebooks, PDFs, and the fact that most people have a computer in their homes, it's almost impossible to conceive that whatever your particular flavour of roleplay is that you like, that there won't be some sort of game out there that you can enjoy. So I think that's a very encouraging thing for the future of the hobby in general. So in terms of the actual convention. It took place at the Birmingham Hilton, which is just next to the NEC. My wife and myself went down. Took us a little while to navigate our way out of the NEC, so we got there fairly late and everything was closed. And the whole thing's a huge labyrinth that Jim Henson himself would be proud of. But eventually we managed to find our way out and made our way to the Premier Inn just down the road where we were staying, and then jumped into the actual convention a day later. My wife unfortunately only ended up playing in one game. She booked in for two, but there was some sort of last minute reshuffle of the timings that meant she couldn't get to one of them, which was unfortunate. But she still got involved in lots of else. We played lots of board games, etc. Very enjoyable. I myself played in 4 role-playing games. I was tempted to go for more, but I didn't really want to give it. I'm not really very experienced at conventions, so I didn't want to throw too much on my plate in case I wasn't really getting into the spirit of things because I didn't enjoy it. I needn't have worried about that, as it turns out, because all 4 of the games I played and the various people I spoke to, it was all really good, really positive experience. Greatly enjoyed it. I played in a game called Blackwood Manor, which was a New World of Darkness Mortals game. I played in that with Jenny Green and Matthew. It was run by Amy Williams. That was an excellent game. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And it's one of the few times I've actually got to play New World of Darkness instead of running it. And Amy brought some very interesting ideas about how to streamline the rules and make them more accessible and more quick to run for a one-off session. Anyone who's read my blogs will know that I'm very interested in simplifying and streamlining the World of Darkness rules, since I think they are a bit bloated and a bit clunky at the moment. So I've taken a great load of things away from that. And I also played in another game called A Rose by Any Other Name, which was run by Amy as well, which was a New World of Darkness Werewolf the Forsaken game. That was great fun and saw the werewolf pack that I ended up leading by default, since we had 5 pre-gen characters, and I basically just said, well, I'm happy to roleplay anything, so you or the guys choose first. And I ended up with the leader of the pack, and led to us unravelling a plot by the Beshalu, the spider changers, to overtake this huge apartment block, and using these strange devices to amplify the spirit world and corrupt it in some way. That was great fun as well. Very much enjoyed both of Amy's games. I'm probably going to put myself down for some more of her World of Darkness stuff, and indeed probably some more of her stuff, since I thought her GMing style was really great, really appealed to me. I also played in a Hollow Earth Expedition game run by our very own Jenny Green, which is called The Great Mystery of the Sky Temple, and that saw me playing a slightly out of condition and geriatric big game hunter, I suppose, like a cross between like a Alan Quatermain out of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, if he'd let himself go a bit, and Brian Blessed, which was great fun, and saw us being forced in an Indiana Jones style to enter this Atlantean temple in the Hollow Earth at gunpoint, being threatened by members of what is known as the Thule Society, effectively a group of Nazis trying to harvest this Atlantean power for themselves, and ended up with us fleeing from their commandant, who'd merged with the crystal power structure of the temple, before dispatching him with a blast from my trusty elephant gun at the end of the game. And finally, to round it all off, earlier on today I played in a game called A Tower on Lonely Hill, ran by Ben Wilson, which was a Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 2nd edition game, but he'd also incorporated elements of Dungeon World and Fate into that to try and help streamline that, and I thought that worked really well. That saw the 4 players as part of a sort of military unit known as the Exiles. I was playing the scout of the group, as we were trying to investigate one of the many watchtowers around the borders of the Empire, where no news had been received from this tower for quite some time, and the last unit sent in to investigate, the Ravens, had not returned. That led to us eventually discovering a plot by the necromantically inclined brother of the Ravens to basically hold the local town to ransom and raise a horde of unliving monstrosities to take a chunk out of the empire, or maybe even start carving his own empire. we didn't know. To be honest, we didn't want to ask what the in-depth plans of such a foul and deviant worshipper of the dark powers were. We snuck into the tower and eventually dispatched the necromancer and his brother in the final throes of the game. Very enjoyable, some great interesting ideas. And like I say, every game I played in at the convention, there was at least something that the GMs did that was slightly different to how I previously would have done something. But it's all given me a great deal of food for thought, some great ideas that I can take and work back into my own games. And all of the groups that I played in, all of the people seemed really enthusiastic and really keen to get involved. There weren't really any conflicts or any problems or anything like that. Everyone was there to have a good time, enjoy themselves, and play an enjoyable role-play session. And again, that's another thing that's really struck me from the weekend, how in each game it was effectively mostly groups of people who are unfamiliar with each other thrown together. But even when I spoke to other people who played other games, I never heard anyone saying, oh, well, we had a real problem player in our game, oh, this didn't work, oh, the game was a bit crap. Oh, that just didn't happen. All I heard all weekend was people saying how much they'd enjoyed games, how they thought other people had played their characters really well, amusing anecdotes of what had happened, etc. And I think that was a really positive thing for the convention. There was also, as I say, numerous board games, card games, etc., some of which I played myself and very much enjoyed, which is no small feat since I have a very, very limited attention span when it comes to board games. But there were some ones that I played, King of Tokyo, which I very much enjoyed. I mean, let's face it, who doesn't like playing giant monsters trying to take over a metropolis? So that was good fun. Myself and Hannah also played Liberium, which is a game we bought recently, which is a sort of high-tech, high-skill version of Jenga, using strange cards that you build on a fulcrum into weird structures. That very entertaining. I highly recommend that if you like Jenga or sort of manual dexterity games. But to be honest, if you're not particularly dexterous like myself, it's still quite good fun. So that was very enjoyable. The actual venue itself was absolutely fine. The staff all seemed reasonably friendly and very helpful whenever I spoke to any of them. There were numerous cosplayers about. There seemed to be a lot of Doctor Who cosplayers about, which was quite entertaining. There were numerous food vans parked outside, which is great, although that does bring me to one of the small gripes I did have with the convention, which I'm sure the people who were there with me have probably got tired of me sort of mentioning, was the fact that if you're planning on going to the UK Games Expo, and I would highly recommend it, since, like I said, I found it a very positive experience. I really enjoyed it. My wife really enjoyed it. Great bunches of people to hang around with, new people to game with, lots of different games to try. I would tell you to bear in mind that it is by no means going to be a cheap weekend. I mean, once you've totted up the actual cost of your tickets, plus the prices of paying to enter various games, then your hotel rooms if you're staying, or your transport costs if you're not, getting there, etc. It's a hefty sum of money. And then if you consider the fact that the convention takes place at the Hilton, and I was expecting the food and drink there to be fairly increased in price. However, some of the prices that were being asked were, I wouldn't like to use the word astronomical lightly, but they did feel extremely expensive, especially considering the amount of money people had already paid towards the convention. However, there were several food stalls outside, etc., that were a little bit more reasonable. But I would say if you're planning on going to the UK Games Expo and you're not rolling in the dough, as I'm not, unfortunately, then you might want to consider making sure you stock up and take some supplies of beer, food, etc., whatever you need for the weekend with you. You'll probably save an absolute packet, and you won't get home to find that your bank balance is curled up in the corner, rocking backwards and forwards and sobbing gently like mine has been doing today. But that said, and I don't want to end on a negative point, and I don't want to give people the idea that it was a negative experience. The whole thing about the food costs, etc., was just a small bump in the road. Overall, the experience was very positive and very enjoyable. lots of different games to play. I thoroughly enjoyed every single game I played in. It was great to finally meet some of the people who I game with online face to face. I met some people I didn't know before I got on with quite well, and it was nice to, it's always nice to talk to people who are very enthusiastic about the hobby, and you really could see the love that people have for role-playing games, card games, etc., sort of shining forth when they were discussing it. And it was nice in the sort of large lounge slash bar area where there were groups of people just sat around talking about games, talking about what they've been doing, getting excited about it, getting enthusiastic about it. And that was one of the main things I enjoyed about the weekend, just being able to see that the health of the hobby currently is, it's very vibrant. There's a lot of life in the hobby, certainly as far as I saw this weekend, that everyone I spoke to who'd been there years before, because like I said, it was my first year, so I had nothing to compare it to. Everyone I spoke to said there were more people there this year. They had a dedicated sort of family area set aside, which was very big. It had all that sort of child-friendly board games, etc., stuff like that, which was great to see, because obviously if we don't bring any new people into the hobby, well, it doesn't have a future. Simple as. And it was great to see the people who run the convention actually taking that step to encourage families and people to bring their children to get involved with the hobby. So overall, I'd say that it's been a great weekend. Myself and my wife really enjoyed it. I know me and Hannah were talking about it on the way back on the train. I'm now absolutely shattered, and like I say, I've only been playing in a few games, so Lord knows how those heroes who actually ran the games at the weekend, and I spoke to people who are running sort of 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever games, Lord knows how they managed to do it, but bless them for doing it and for keeping us entertained all weekend, and for giving us players all this plot and all these fantastic worlds that we were just eating up as the convention went on. I'll certainly be planning to attend next year. I'm even hoping to run some games next year. I'm also hoping that next year I'll be able to get in on the Cthulhu Masters tournament, since everyone who spoke about that praised it really highly, and there was a great deal of excitement around that. Everyone really seemed to enjoy it. Unfortunately, I'd already booked by the time it was put up on the actual convention website, so it conflicted with some stuff I'd already booked, which was a shame, because if it had been advertised a bit better and put up a bit earlier, then I probably would have got in on it this year, but at least I'll know for next year. So there we go. That's my, albeit slightly rambling, because like I say, I'm very tired, thoughts following the 2015 UK Games Expo. If you're interested in trying out new games, role-playing with new people, and you can get yourself there and afford to get yourself there, I highly recommend it. Personally, I can't wait for the 2016 UK Games Expo. Hopefully, I'll see you all there, and I might even be playing in some of your games, or you might be playing in some games that I'm running. So until I see you in the next video I make, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. You consider clicking on the red dice up there to subscribe. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like it, give it a thumbs down. If you've got any comments, as always, put them in the box below, or hit me up in the Google Plus links. I really do enjoy reading what you write. And until I see you next time, take care and happy gaming wherever you are in the world.